Hi everybody, and welcome to another video. This video is actually going to be a conversation about soil mixes and the soil mixes that I use. I've been using an aroid soil mix up to now because I have had mostly indoor plants. I've had a few plants that I kept out on a balcony, but the balcony in my old apartment was south facing, which in Australia means doesn't get any sun. It used to get sun, very hot afternoon sun at the tail end of summer, but then basically no sun at all over winter. So I was using a very aroid mix. And now in my new apartment, I've still got the indoor plants, which I'm still using the aroid mix for, but my balcony, which goes around three sides of this apartment, you're probably sick if you've been watching these videos of me saying that, but it goes around three sides of the apartment, and it gets morning sun on one side of the balcony, and it gets the hot afternoon Australian sun on the other side of the balcony. And that's all year round because it's east, south, and west facing. So I need a much more moisture retentive mix out there. So I'm playing around with the ratio that I use. Now, this video is going to be a little bit disjointed because I had a bit of a problem with my iPad in that it is full. So it won't let me actually get the clips that I filmed off of it without cutting them down into tiny little pieces. So I've had to do that, and unfortunately a few of the pieces have seemed to have drifted off into the ether somewhere and they've gone missing. One of those was the beginning, the prologue to this, which is why I am re-recording it now. I'm inside rather than out on the balcony. But you will find the clips. So I've got this intro, and then I've got a clip outside on the balcony, another clip outside on the balcony. Then there's a bit of a gap again. And then there is the final clip about the soil, which you can see. The reason that I'm still going to upload it is that I think the information that I give you in those three clips that I've managed to save, I think they're actually quite worthwhile. I've listened to them a number of times now, and I think there's a lot of information in there that you may find interesting. So just forgive me for the technical difficulties I've had with this particular video. This video is also about preparing the soil mix for the final troughs. If you've been watching the evolution of my balcony, for the final 3 troughs to go in, which will be coming up after this video, you will see the final trough being planted up, and that will hopefully create my green wall, which fingers crossed will look good come summer. We're in winter now, or we're going into winter now. It's May. So I've actually written myself a few little notes about things that I wanted to actually get through in this part of the video because, as I said, it cuts in and out a bit. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the mulch. Now, I went in the beginning of it into the mix I use, and I showed you the various different components to the soil mix that I use, to my normal aroid soil mix. So I showed you the block, which I will put a picture of. I use Brunning's Quar soil mulch and mix, which is a big chunky mix. And it comes in a block, and I'll show you the block. And then I've actually found a snippet of somebody else's video, which I have borrowed. It's 7 seconds long. And it just shows the block with some water being poured on it, and it shows it expanding. So it comes in a brick about yay big, and you can get it from Bunnings. And you put water on it. He just put the hose on it. I don't have a hose, and I actually use warm water because I think it makes it expand a bit faster. Whether or not it does, I don't know. It's not boiling hot water. I'm not trying to sterilize it. So I use that mulch cocoa chips. And then I use perlite, which is a expanded volcanic rock. It's very light and fluffy. It retains water, but it also lets the mix have lots of holes and things, so there's oxygen, because roots need not only water and nutrients, they need oxygen as well. And then I use a little bit of charcoal normally, activated charcoal, which I also get from Bunnings. And the other thing is just normal cheapest chips potting soil. And I use like a scoop of that. You'll see me prepare the aroid mix. I also bought some compost mix for the outdoor plants because, as I said, I want them to have a bit more of a moisture retentive thing. I bought some compost, and I've just top dressed for winter my outdoor plants with a layer of compost, which is drying out very fast, but it's obviously needed because the soil underneath is very arid. So I think it's going to help them, and it's going to give some nutrients to the plants outside over winter. Hopefully they'll be concentrating on their roots over winter, so a bit of compost in the mix will be good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to conversation about soil clip number 1 now, and you will see that it picks up right where I have broken down the block of the Brunnings mulch, and you will be able to see, and I've put the water in and it's soaked for a little while I talked about all of those other things, and you will see me pick up from there. And let's go ahead and play those 2 clips. And yeah, so this, I don't know if you can see, this is now beginning to break apart into chunks. And as it breaks apart, I will move it into here so we can see. And what I do is I just crunch it up between my fingers, and the smell of this is delicious. This also is sustainable. This is just coconut husks. So they chop up the coconut. You can get the coconut coir, which is the very thin stuff. It's the exact same stuff that's in this. It's just that the coconut coir is actually, I hope that's not making a noise on the microphone. I'm sorry if it is. The coconut coir is finely ground, and this stuff isn't. Basically, I'm just going to tear off bits and scrunch it up. That will take liters and liters of water into it. I don't need to have all of those liters of water in it. I just need it to be able to be broken up like this. So some of the chunks are big and some of them are fibrous, like that. And then some of them are smaller. So you get a nice mix, and this is very free. It's water retentive, but it's free draining as well. And that's what we want with our aroids. So we'll mix that together with just a little bit of potting mix. So maybe a scoop of potting mix. Because this is going to be an indoor plant, we don't need that much potting mix in the mix, so to speak. And then I'll put a bit of perlite in too. You don't need to do all of these things, but if you have them and you want to use them, I like to. It's a good thing to do to use them. So there we go. Okay, now with the perlite, this is very, very dusty. So if you're going to be doing this indoors, I recommend doing it in a laundry area if you have a laundry that's a closed off room, or else in the bathroom where you can close the door so the dust doesn't go everywhere. But basically, you're just going to mix it around with your hands a little bit. And really, this is mostly cocoa coir, as you can see, but it has got a little bit of the other 2 things in it as well. So I'll just bring it closer and show you exactly what it is. Okay, so you have a look. We've got the cocoa coir, we've got some of the perlite, and the little black things that you can see in there, if you can see them, are just a little bit of the potting mix. So that's that. So we're going to come back here now. Pop this back down. Right, now, this little guy here is a small plant, but it is going to become a very large plant. Its name is Epipremnum, or Pothos skeleton key. And these are the junior leaves, so they're just like a million other plants as they're babies. But once they grow up big and strong, they look like keys. And so which is why it's called a skeleton key, obviously. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it on one of the poles. Now I know this is going to grow relatively quickly, so I may put it onto one of the 90 centimeter poles, which is there. So basically, what I can do is I can take out some of the potting mix from the bottom of this, or I can fill it up more, because you can see here, we have a look, here the potting mix would be underneath the soil, and you really don't want that so much. But I don't know that I need to waste so much of the pole down below there. I think if I raise the soil up to about there, I will still have enough stability in the pole to be able to keep it going. So I'm going to do that. So first things first, pop that down, put some of this in the bottom of here. If I was planting it in something like one of these, I would put it straight to the bottom, because otherwise you do not have any stability. And as you can see, there's no stability in this one because it's all dried out, because I'm about to unpot it and then pot it up again. But with this one, pop it down like that, and then if we pop this back in, we can see that we've still got quite a bit of potting mix there. So I'm going to actually remove some of that. Doesn't matter if you don't get it all, but there we go. And of course save it, because you want to be able to have things be nice and healthy and sustainable, and you don't want to waste product. So there we go. Okay, now if you can see, there's a bit of a problem now in that if I just put the soil mix into here, the aroid mix into here, I'm going to have a great big hole there. So the next step is to take your soil mix and shove it up into the base of the pole. Comes up. And you can be quite forceful in your shoving, because you don't want it to, you don't want to have too many holes in the potting mix. Otherwise the water will just drain straight through. But you also don't want it so tight that the roots can't grow into the pole. So there we go. So it's going to look like this. Now, as you can see, the plant can be at about that level, say. So I still need to build the level here of the soil up a bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lean this back a little bit, because all of the leaves are going to grow on this side, which is going to put some weight to force the moss pole forward. So if you lean it back just a tiny bit, it just seems to help a little bit with the stability of the pole over time. This isn't going to grow out of this pole for quite a while. I'm figuring this should be good for all of winter, if not longer. So the next thing you do is we squeeze the edges of the plant and then tap the bottom and we pop it out. This is the first time we're going to have a look at the root structure, if there is one. And there is actually a decent root structure for this one. I have to sneeze. So, can you see the roots there? I'm not sure. I'm going to just put it in here because I don't want to disturb it any more than I have to. And you can see that the soil mix of this is quite good as well. So the way you plant it up is you find where the aerial roots are. So basically, with every single stem, with every single leaf, on the opposite side, there is a little aerial root that comes out. That aerial root is going to grow into our moss poles. So somebody has cut this. This is obviously, this probably was tissue cultured in the beginning, but more recently it has been cut from a stem propagation to cell, because this is the top bit and there's a cut right there, which means that the next leaf is actually coming out the side here. So it's activated another node there. It's coming out the side. So basically, we are going to put it there. I have a whole bunch of different types of clips and things in this box here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to help it to find the pole by putting the little clips in so that the aerial roots can find the pole and grow into it. So, as I said, all different sizes of clips and looks of clips. I've got some really cute ones, but for here, because I'm going down the bottom anyway, I'm not going to worry too much about having clips that look pretty. Now now that we've got this on the pole, you can see that wherever it was growing, it was pulling, the light was coming from this direction, which is why the leaves are all facing this direction. If I have this in a in an area where the sun's coming this way, it will then move across. So you don't need to worry about that too much. Ideally, you want front on, for the best viewing as a plant grows up. If you're having an indoor plant, you want front on light coming in. So you can do that with grow light. This, as I've said before, is just a baby. It's going to move all over the place by the time we finish with it. And so I'm not too worried about where to put it. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some more of my mix in the top here. And I'm actually going to shove some down the back, because down the back here, where we held it back, we've actually got a hole where there isn't any potting mix. And this is just going to help with the stability of the plant overall. So I'm just going to put this down here, like this. And I'm going to tap it all together. And there's one more thing that we're going to do once we finish just putting a little bit more of this in here, which is to put a pole at the back. So with all of my moss poles, once they get large, they're going to need, as it gets large and the weight goes here, even though you've planted it back a little bit in the pot like we did, we are still going to get a reasonable amount of weight pulling it forward. So what we do is we get garden stakes, and these are tomato stakes. These are small ones. I have much bigger ones, but for a starter plant like this, I'm just going to use one of these just to get it used to it. So basically you put it right at the back and you shove it down. It doesn't need to shove down all the way. And as we don't have any weight on this plant, this is just for stability and to get the plant settled. Once we need to, I will put a larger garden stake in here, so I can pull that out quite easily and then put it in. The next thing we do is we get a little bit of this Velcro tape, which is fabulous. This is reusable again, and I love it. And we basically just move it around so that we just keep the stake in place and keep some contact on the stake. There we go. So there we have it. We have one lovely planted skeleton key. That can now stay like this. I will give it a good water, and I'll show you the way I water it, so bear with. I'm just going to go and get one of my bottles. So I love my Diet Coke, so I use Diet Coke bottles. Sydney Plant Guy uses water bottles that he has. He has liter water bottles. This is 600 mils of water. So basically what I do, oops, you're not going to be able to see this. Basically what I do, if I move it back, you will. Hang on a second. Let's do this. Okay. So let's move it back. There we go. So basically, you take the bottle and you tip it in the top and push it down a little bit. And basically what will happen is gravity will drip feed the water down into the pole. When the sphagnum moss gets wet, the area roots will seek out the water and they'll go, ooh, that's something nice and moist. And they will grow into it and grow up and down. And the excess water will drain down into, first of all, the aroid soil mix that I have, and then through the stratum, and finally into the bottom. This 600 ml bottle will not saturate this entire thing. As you see the bubbles coming up, I don't know if you can see that, but I can see bubbles coming up, which means that the plant is taking in the water, or the pole is taking in the water. It's dripping down, and you just let nature do its course. So that is the way I pot up my moss poles. Now, as I said, this soil mix that I've used is the soil mix that I use for indoor plants. I'm just going to move this back over here and let it do its thing while we talk about what I am now doing for my outdoor areas. Soil outdoors, if you just go out and you dig around in your garden soil, most of it is going to look, some of it can look like clay, so very thick and gluggy, but it's going to look sort of a dark brown to a blackish color, sometimes red if it's got iron in it, especially in Australia. But it's going to have a whole bunch of microorganisms and different bits and pieces living in it, which is all very healthy and which you want to encourage. It is much more dense garden soil than, say, the aroid mix that we're using here, because when it rains in nature and the water goes down, the water goes down into the soil and relatively quickly, if it's clay soil, it'll be slower, but relatively quickly works its way down and out into an aquifer underneath or wherever else, or else plants take it up. But plants don't like sitting with wet feet. So the fact that it drains away is a good thing. Roots not only need water, plants not only need water, but they need oxygen as well, which is something that I didn't know until I started planting up plants years ago. I got my first plant, I'm 57 now, and I bought my first ever plant for my own place when I was about 28, so that's a long time ago. So I've been in this plant game for a while. Only got into the aroids and the indoor plants in a big way in about the last 10 years. Before that, I just had a few plants around the house, but not very many. Now I've got tons, as you can see all around me. I've got tons. But I've only learned about the aroid mix and things like that in the past few years as well. But as I now have a large balcony area, and this is also a very windy area, I need something that is going to hold on to moisture much more than my old soil mix did. So what I've been doing is making up a mix still with a little bit of the cocoa coir and a little bit of the perlite, but a lot more of the potting soil. One thing I didn't add to the other thing was charcoal. Another thing I add is activated charcoal, which you can get from from Bunnings, and you can just crunch it up into little pieces. This just helps the soil to stay clean. I'm not quite sure how it acts, but I do know that the Amazon rainforest was created, the Amazonians or the Incas created their very, very fertile soil by using charcoal and fish guts and something else that they use, straw or something else that they use. And they used to mix it all together and then they grow their crops on top of that. And if you look at the soil in the Amazon, I watched a documentary on this, there's at least that thickness of this incredible, I think they call it biochar soil, that has just been man made, created, but not created in the last 100 years, created in the last 5, 10,000 years. And that is one of the reasons why the Amazon is so incredibly fertile, which is interesting, I think. Or parts of the Amazon are incredibly fertile. Parts of it are still rainforested, but with poor soil structure. So, one thing I have been doing, so that's what I've been doing with the pot plants. So, individual pot plants, like, for example, this little one here, which is a calathea. And this has my normal soil mix in it. But then what I've done is I've actually topped, because this one didn't need repotting. It's going to need repotting soon. But what I've done is I have top dressed it with just some compost, which I also get from Bunnings, from the Garden Best range, cheapest chips. I think it was $6.95 for the big bag. And I've top dressed all of my plants with this. So the compost is a little bit richer than the potting mix. Very similar. It's not, hasn't got the chunks and things in it, and obviously it's made from compost. But they quite like it because you can see all this new growth. When I moved into this apartment, I had all of these plants out and didn't realize quite how fierce the sun was going to be. So most of my plants got quite severely burnt and damaged. So I have cut them all back. So what I basically did was, you can see all of these were all leaves. This plant was this high. And I just said, bugger it, I'm going to chop it all back. You can see a little bit of damage to that one there. It's crispy at the edge. But you can see these ones are all looking lovely. Because I've now got shade up here. I've got some lattice work shading out the worst of the summer sun. But I chopped everything back and then top dressed it with the compost and just let it all regrow. So I'm going to continue doing this, just leave everything as is until winter passes. We're going into autumn now and then it will be winter. But in November it will be summer, so in September, October, it will begin to warm up and be spring, and I will be repotting everything then. Right, I can go there with my rubbish pile. So I'm back, and I hope you guys found that interesting. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the troughs. If you watched my last video that I posted, it went into and showed you the actual troughs that I am using. In this next clip, I'm going to talk to you about the mix that I'm using in those troughs, which, as I said, is a more moisture retentive mix. And I'm actually going to put these up against some lattice work, and I'm putting pots that have moss poles in them into the troughs, and that will hopefully mean that the whole area is a little bit neater. I'll show you, or I've shown you in the previous video, about the mess that happens with all the little pots, and it's a bit bitsy. So I've got 3 long 99 centimeter troughs which go along the back of my balcony, and will provide with the lattice work, will provide a green wall hopefully come summer. So let's go on to the third clip now, and then I'll come back at the end and just tie everything up because it cuts off as well. As I said, it's all a bit of an experiment. We will see. My plan is to plant the plants along the back, and then along the front I will have things that can trail over to hide the plastic eventually. I do have a number of things here that I could potentially use for that, although I think these ones basically are going to need these are some other things I bought from Bunnings the other day. I got this one, which is a Piper silaticum, a Piper silaticum. I've got a Piper crocatum as well, which I'm using as an indoor plant at the moment, and that's very pretty. But this one doesn't look too silvery there, but apparently it's called sylvaticum, so whether or not it gets silvery or it just grows into deeper greens, but I like the pattern, it's quite pretty, so I will put that on a pole, and that will go in one of these. The other thing I bought is another Peru, because my Peru got burnt to smithereens. So I bought a baby one. I've still got the other one too, but I bought a baby one. And what I will do is I will pot this one up with the pole where the other Peru is. And this can grow up that pole as well. And because I'm starting this off as a baby in these conditions, my hope is that it will survive better. It will acclimatize quite quickly to the higher light levels than I normally would have. This is one of my rescues that I got. Unfortunately, this is one of the ones that got badly burnt. This is a Calathea warsaweckii, and this is actually a velvety Calathea, so this should be inside. When I first moved in here, I just put everything out on the balcony while I moved all the furniture in, and by the time I got back to everything, it was all burnt. So again, I cut it right back, as you can see, and it's grown a few leaves, but the leaves have not done very well, and they've crisped up. I'm now taking better care of it. I've got new growth growing there. There's a whole new spike coming up. And then I've got a lovely new flower growing out of not a flower, a lovely new leaf growing out of there as well. And we will see what happens with this one. By the way, this was $14.55 from Bunnings. And they had them about a few months ago. So whether or not they still have them, I don't know. The next thing I bought from Bunnings the other day was just some more basil, because my basil has finally bolted that I've had all summer. I have 3 sides to this balcony. We are at the moment sitting on the western side, so that's why the reason we're sitting here right now is it's morning and there's no sun here. The eastern side gets direct morning sun, and that's where the basil's growing and all of my other herbs and things are growing, because they don't really like late afternoon sun. It's a bit harsh here in Sydney, but the morning sun they love. And yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing now. What I'm going to do with this one, I may as well do that while we're here, is, and I can just do it into here, is I'm going to take it out of this pot. And I don't know if you can see, but this was another thing that got destroyed in the move. This was much longer, and what I've done is I've cut the stem in a number of places, and it has reshot. It has aerial roots that have grown into the pole, which is why, even though this is not connected to a root system at all, because it's got a root system inside the pole. Now let me show you what I do when I take one of these apart. This one I've got connected, because I was cutting it, I've got connected with those Velcro tabs that I told you about, which are fab. So if we undo this, and then if we carefully put this on the ground here, I don't want to waste this pole because it's made out of plastic, which is not renewable, as we know. And while I love using the plastic, I do not want to destroy the plastic. And I don't want to have to use too much of it. It's a waste of money and a waste of the environment. So the little tabs come out, and then we can take out, first of all, take out the soil, and then we can take out the plants themselves. So first thing I do is I break up the sphagnum moss a little bit. Now, just come over and I'll show you something. This is rather interesting. So you can see, I hope, here, if you have a look, you can see that the sphagnum moss is obviously the light stuff, but can you see these things going through here? Those are all roots. So those are the roots of the plant, which are growing out and through. And that's actually what we want to have happen in a moss pole. We want the roots to grow out. God, I've been going for 51 minutes. Who knew? Okay, let's go back to here and I'll wrap this up soon. If you have stayed to this stage, thank you very much. I am very new to, I've been doing plants a long time, but I'm very new to videoing, etc. And I am also extremely new to editing and things. I have no idea how to do it properly. And that is a skill that I want to learn in the next little while. So I can get better at it, but if you can bear with me while I do that, if you get anything out of these videos that I'm going to be making, hopefully you will enjoy them and get something out of them. And if you don't, and that's fine too. There are plenty of other people on the internet who will be much more proficient at the plant, at the editing game and the filming game than me. I know about the plants, but so do a lot of other people. My favorite plant people are people like Kaylee Ellen and Jungle Haven. I love her things, and of course Sydney Plant Guy. I love him. I started seeing him on Instagram, and when he launched his YouTube channel a few years ago, I was so happy, and I've watched him move 1,000 times, and I love his new place that he's just moved into, and I sort of felt like a kindred spirit with him because he's learning to plant on balconies while I'm learning to plant on balconies, so I thought that was quite fun. And he has discovered, like me, exactly what the sun can do. So we now have one plant here, which we've gotten off, and this is the root that grew into the sphagnum moss, and it has a few little nodes down below that can still activate, but that's the root that one's grown, and it wasn't going to do anything more than this really until we got it on its own pole, or repotted it anyway. So I'm just going to carefully place this one here while I work at getting the next one off. So this next one here, and basically you just put your fingers in. You can do this while it's wet or while it's dry. It doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. The stuff comes off as it will come off. A few roots will break, and sometimes you just have to snap them and break them in order to get it out. But I save as much of the sphagnum as I can. And you know, this pole, I can tell by feeling the sphagnum, was packed quite tight. And one thing I'm doing in my latest poles is not packing them as tightly as I used to. I used to pack them in so that they were like soil, but that means that the plants have to fight to get the roots have to fight to get through the plant, which is not exactly what you want. You want them to be able to get in and grow, and you want them preferably to grow big, thick roots if they're a plant that grows big, thick roots. Okay, so you can see that cut off at a rather jarring manner. Apologies for that. Once again, that's what happens when you try and clip things up. I figured out what the problem is. The problem is that I didn't spend the money and get a iPad with a lot of RAM on it, or a lot of gigs on it. It's only a 64 gigs, and basically it means you can't have all of your apps and your recordings and then try and upload them to CapCut or iCreate and things like that. Well, you can create your things on the iPad, but then you can't actually upload them to YouTube as one video. So what I'm doing from now on is recording on my iPhone. My iPad will no longer be used for recording. I might use B-roll for it rather than the A-roll. So I'm sort of swapping around. But my phone has a lot more gigs on it, so it's going to be a lot better inside because it's going to be warmer inside. And behind me, you can see I've got sort of a bit of a wall of plants and things, and quite a few of these plants need to be condensed and repotted, and different things have to happen to them. So I figure I may as well take you guys along on that journey. But thank you very much. If you got to this stage of the video, I really appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. Please leave me a nice comment. And if you feel like subscribing and you've gotten to this point, if you subscribe, you'll get a notification of when I put the videos up. I've been putting these videos up sort of quite regularly because I was trying to figure out the problem with trying to get the information in the videos to you and to be able to upload them to YouTube, but I was still recording at the same time because I had things that I was doing. But now that I've sort of figured out how I'm going to go forward, you won't get a video sort of every day or every 2 days. The videos will slow down a little bit now, but and I know that I sort of start off in January, and I'm putting them out now, which is sort of 4 or 5 months later. But anyway, that's just the way it's happened. And at least you'll have the back catalog to watch if you're interested, and you can see how I've gone about setting up my balcony garden. So I will talk to you all later. As I said, I hope you enjoy. Watch the next video, and you will see how I've potted up the poles into the troughs, and then you'll see the final result. So enjoy, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.